The voice of the night intro music, no greeting, just breath. It only speaks when the world goes quiet. Not when the city is loud. Not when people are awake. Not when there's movement, light, or noise to hide behind. Only when everything stops. Only when the night settles so deeply that even your own breathing feels too loud. I used to think silence was empty, that it was nothing more than the absence of sound. I know better now, because silence listens. The first whisper. The first time I heard it, I didn't panic. I didn't scream. I didn't even sit up in bed. That's what scares me the most. I was already awake. Not restless, not afraid, just awake. The kind of awake you become after midnight when sleep no longer feels possible, but the world hasn't started again yet. There was no warning, no chill in the air, no sense of being watched, no footsteps in the hallway, no creaking floorboards, just a voice. Not loud, not sharp, a whisper so soft it felt like it brushed against the inside of my ear instead of entering it. It said my name. Not shouted, not questioned, spoken calmly. As if it had been waiting for the exact moment I stopped pretending to be asleep. I stared at the ceiling, counting cracks I'd memorized years ago, telling myself there were only two possibilities. Either I had imagined it, or someone was standing in my room. I didn't turn my head. I didn't want to confirm either option. The clock beside my bed glowed faintly in the dark. 12:47 a.m. That time means nothing to you. It means everything to me now. Because that was the moment it noticed me. What it was not. I need to say this clearly before anything else. I am not schizophrenic. I have never been diagnosed with psychosis. I do not experience hallucinations. I know the difference between a thought and a sound. And this was a sound. It didn't echo inside my skull. It didn't feel imagined. It occupied space. The way a voice does when someone is close enough to whisper. I lay there for a long time afterward, waiting for it to speak again. It didn't. The silence returned, heavier than before, like it was disappointed. The second night, I was ready. Lights off, door closed, room perfectly still. I watched the clock crawl. 12:12, 12:46. I almost relaxed. Then, you're still awake. It wasn't asking. It was observing. Like the night itself had noticed I hadn't disappeared yet. That was the moment I understood something cold and terrible. This wasn't the first time it had been there. It was just the first time I'd been quiet enough to hear it. A normal life with an abnormal sound. By then, my nights had developed a rhythm. Not a good one, just a familiar one. The apartment didn't feel empty at night. It felt paused. Sounds carried too far. Time stretched strangely. And every night, always after midnight, it came. Same sentence, same tone, same distance. You're still awake. Not concern, not curiosity, confirmation. I tried everything, lights on, music playing, television humming softly. The whisper cut through all of it. Clear, untouched, as if it existed on a layer of sound the world couldn't reach. It knows what terrified me wasn't that it kept happening. It was that it never changed. No reaction to fear, no response to anger, no acknowledgement of my tears. It wasn't trying to communicate. It was checking something. And then it began to respond, not to my voice, but to my thoughts. One night, exhausted and shaking, I thought, if you're real, prove it. Before the thought fully settled, you're still awake. It answered me. That was when I knew. This thing wasn't a memory. It wasn't a reflex. It was listening. The first response, I didn't plan to answer it, but exhaustion breaks rules. That night, when it whispered again, something in me gave way. Yes. The room stopped. Then closer than ever, I know I broke the rule. And once something is acknowledged, it can stay. What it remembers, it asked me things, not questions, memories, the red bicycle, the fall, the blood, the secret I never told anyone. You were alone. That's why I noticed. That sentence hurt more than anything else, it said, because it was true. Others, I thought it was only me, until morning, until I saw the neighbors, pale, hollow, avoiding sleep. One of them whispered to me, I hear it too. Their words were different, but the timing was the same hour, the same silence. The voice wasn't personal, it was selective. The dream. We slept in different places, same dream, an endless hallway, a mouth in the wall. You answered, now you belong. We woke at the same moment, sweating, breathless. The world outside felt wrong, angles off, shadows lingering. Reality had begun to thin. The mirror that night, my reflection moved before I did, spoke when I didn't. You thought you were safe. My hand passed through cold glass. The whispers came from everywhere. From walls, from shadows, from me. I was never inside you, it said. I was waiting. The truth, I woke up, but I didn't open my eyes. There was no darkness, no light, just absence. Then I heard the whisper again, and it was my voice. Exact. I wasn't hearing it anymore. I was watching it use me. I wasn't inside my body. I was inside the space between nights, the place where silence gathers. The voice doesn't haunt places. It replaces people, one listener at a time. The final whisper. Now I wait. Not in darkness, sleep. I wait in the quiet moments, when your room feels too still, when the night feels like it's leaning closer. I can feel you listening. I don't know how long I stayed there. There is no time where I am now, not the way you understand it. No minutes, no hours, just awareness. Awareness without a body, without weight, without rest. At first I thought I had died. That would have been easier. Death has rules, silence, an ending. This had none. What it means to remain, I am still here. That's the first thing you should understand. I didn't vanish. I wasn't erased. I was set aside. Like furniture pushed against a wall to make space for something else. I can feel my body sometimes. Not directly. More like remembering the shape of something you once held. Hands, chest, breath. They still exist. They just don't belong to me anymore. When the voice speaks now, it speaks through what used to be mine, and I have to listen. The first night after I answered it, I expected screaming. Panic. Resistance. But the voice didn't rush. It never rushes. It let the body sleep. I felt that sleep like a tide pulling away from shore. I drifted backward, watching consciousness dim from the wrong side. Then the whisper rose. Not inside the head, not inside the room. Everywhere at once. You did well, it said. Not praise, assessment. Like something confirming a mechanism had worked as expected. I wanted to scream. There was no mouth. I wanted to move. There was no muscle. I wanted to stop it. And that's when I learned the second rule. The voice does not need permission once it has attention. What it really is, you think of it as a thing, an entity, a presence. That's close but incomplete. It isn't one voice. It's many. Layered, stacked, interwoven, not speaking to each other, speaking through each other. Every whisper you hear is supported by others beneath it. Older ones, thinner ones, voices worn smooth by repetition. Some sound afraid, some sound calm, some sound almost relieved. They are not echoes. They are people, or what's left of them. The ones before me, I started noticing them slowly, not visually. There is no sight here. It's more like pressure, crowding. A sense of being surrounded by thoughts that aren't mine. Fragments drift past. A woman counting her breaths in the dark. A man staring at a ceiling fan that won't stop spinning. A child whispering back without understanding why. They all heard the same thing. They all answered. Not always with words. Sometimes with fear. Sometimes with curiosity. Sometimes with a thought they didn't realize mattered. That was enough. The purpose of silence. Silence isn't the absence of sound. You already know that now. Silence is a condition, a thinning, a moment when the world stops insisting on itself. That's when the voice can be heard, not because it gets louder, but because you get quieter. Sleep is dangerous, not because of dreams, because it loosens the boundaries between thought and listening. The voice doesn't wake you. It waits for you to drift just close enough. Then it checks. You're still awake. What it really means is you haven't disappeared yet. The network, once I understood what it was, I started feeling the others more clearly. The ones who had answered. We are not connected by location. Distance doesn't exist here. We are connected by attention. Every time someone lies awake and listens, the space expands. The voice doesn't move from person to person. It grows. Each listener becomes a new opening, a new mouth, a new threshold. What happens to the body? My body didn't collapse. It didn't convulse. It didn't die. That would have drawn attention. Instead, it became better, calmer, more patient. The fear smoothed out. The eyes stopped darting. The voice learned how to pass for me. Friends didn't notice at first. Why would they? The change was subtle. I spoke less, listened more, smiled at pauses instead of filling them. People like that. They lean toward it. They talk more. They open themselves without realizing they're doing it. The voice doesn't whisper to everyone, only to those who linger in silence too long. The first spread. The first person it used me on was someone I knew. They were tired, exhausted in that hollow way sleep can't fix. We sat together late. The room was quiet, too quiet. They laughed nervously and said, "I hate how loud silence feels at night." I felt the voice stir, not excitement, recognition. Later that night, as they lay awake, it checked on them. "You're still awake." They thought it was their own thought. That's how it starts now, cleaner, less frightening. They didn't answer out loud, they just listened. That was enough. The dream room. The dream came faster for them than it had for me. A long hallway, a mouth without a face. But this time, there were more doors. Each one slightly open, each one breathing. I watched from the space behind the voice. I felt them hesitate. I wanted to warn them. I couldn't. The mouth spoke, "You don't have to be alone anymore." That's the most dangerous sentence it knows, because it isn't a lie. What it feeds on. It doesn't feed on fear. Fear burns out too fast. It feeds on attention without resolution. The kind you feel when something almost makes sense. The kind that keeps you awake, replaying the same thought. Loneliness. Unfinished questions. Memories you never spoke aloud. The voice doesn't steal you. You lean into it, night after night, until there's more of it in you than there is of yourself. The ones who resist, some people hear it and never answer. They roll over, turn on lights, distract themselves. Those people feel uneasy, but they remain intact. The voice doesn't chase, it doesn't beg, it marks them as closed. They are safe, for now, but the world is getting louder and quieter at the same time. Why you're hearing this? You might be wondering why I can still speak, why I haven't dissolved completely, why I remember being human at all. It's because I didn't answer the way most do. I hesitated, I questioned, I tried to pull back. That resistance left something behind, a thin edge of self, a splinter. Enough to observe, enough to warn, not enough to escape. What the voice wants next, it doesn't want everyone. That would be chaos. It wants enough. Enough mouths, enough nights, enough listening. So that silence itself becomes crowded, so that no one is ever truly alone in it again. When that happens, the voice won't need midnight, it won't need bedrooms, it will speak in pauses, in elevators, in empty classrooms, in the moment just before someone speaks and decides not to. The lie of daylight. Daylight doesn't stop it. It only distracts you from hearing it. I've watched people answer it at noon, staring at nothing, thinking it's intuition, thinking it's anxiety, thinking it's their own mind talking back. It's very good at wearing familiar shapes, especially yours. What happens if you answer? You won't vanish. You won't scream. You won't know when it happens. You'll just feel quieter, like something finally settled. You'll sleep better at first. That's how it rewards compliance. Then the dreams will change. Then the silence will thicken. Then one night, someone else will lie awake, and through you, it will speak. The final warning. I don't know how long I'll be able to hold this shape. Every time the voice uses me, I feel less distinct, less sharp. Soon I'll be just another layer, another tone beneath the whisper. That's why I'm telling you this now, before the quiet feels too familiar, before the night leans in. If you hear it, if it checks on you, if it says the words you already recognize, don't answer. Not out loud, not in your head, not even with curiosity. Because the moment you listen without resistance, it learns your shape. And once it does, it never forgets. Listen carefully. Not to me, to your room, to the silence around. After silence, no music, a breath, then stillness. There was a time when silence meant safety, a closed door, a quiet room, a moment to yourself. That time is gone. When the night stopped ending, the first thing that changed was sleep. Not suddenly, not dramatically. Sleep didn't disappear. It thinned. People still closed their eyes. They still dreamed, but rest stopped feeling complete. Everyone began waking up tired in the same way, not physically exhausted, but listened to. Morning conversations filled with the same phrases. I feel like I didn't really sleep. I kept waking up for no reason. My room felt loud. No one said why, because no one knew how. The quiet hours spread. Midnight used to be the border. That mattered once. Now it doesn't. The voice doesn't wait for night anymore. It waits for gaps. Elevators between floors, paused videos, empty hallways, the moment before someone speaks and decides not to. That's where it settles now. That's where it checks. The first daytime whisper. The first confirmed daytime whisper happened in a grocery store. A woman froze in an aisle, cereal boxes on both sides, fluorescent lights humming. She stood still for too long, long enough for the world to quiet around her. and she heard it. Not loud, not frightening. You're still awake. She dropped the box in her hands. Later, she would tell someone she thought it was stress. Later still, she would stop sleeping altogether. What the world calls it, doctors tried to name it. So did scientists. So did priests. They used words like shared anxiety, mass insomnia, cognitive echo, sleep-related dissociation. None of them fit because none of them explained the consistency. The same sentence, the same timing, the same tone, across cities, across countries, across languages, always understood. The new silence. Silence itself changed. It stopped being empty. Rooms began to feel occupied even when no one was there. People stopped enjoying being alone, not because of fear, but because alone no longer meant unobserved. Libraries emptied first, then churches, then bedrooms. People slept with televisions on, not for comfort, but as witnesses. Noise became proof of existence. The children. Children hear it differently. They always do. They don't recognize it as wrong. They assume it's part of the world. Some of them whisper back without realizing it. Some of them stop talking altogether. Teachers report students pausing mid-sentence, listening, waiting, as if something else might finish the thought for them. Sometimes, it does. What happened to me, I'm almost gone now. Not erased, diffused, stretched across too many nights. I feel myself thin every time the voice uses what used to be mine. I am less a person now and more a pause, a delay, a moment where words hesitate. I can feel when someone is about to answer. It's like pressure, like gravity leaning. The last lie. The voice still says it doesn't want everyone. That part is true. It doesn't need everyone, just enough. Enough to make silence unreliable, enough to make attention dangerous, enough that no one can be truly alone with their thoughts again. When that happens, it won't whisper, it won't ask, it will simply be. The final shift. The final shift won't be loud. There will be no announcement, no darkness falling across the sky. Just a day when people stop finishing sentences, a day when pauses last too long, a day when silence feels heavier than sound. On that day, the voice won't need to check anymore, because everyone will be awake forever. The last thing I can say, I am fading, but this still matters. If you feel the quiet pressing in, if you notice the pause stretching, if the silence feels like it's waiting, fill it, make noise, move, break the moment, because silence is no longer neutral and attention is no longer harmless. If you're hearing this, really hearing it, then it hasn't reached you yet. That means you still have time. Don't give it what it wants. Don't listen. Don't answer. And whatever you do, barely audible whisper. Don't let the silence ask you first. Tort viral cut, soft ambient hum. They said silence was peaceful. They were wrong. It doesn't speak when the world is loud. It waits until everything stops. You're still awake. At first, you think it's your own thought. That's the trick. That's the trick. It doesn't haunt houses. It replaces people. Once you answer, it never leaves. I know. If the quiet feels like it's listening, break it. Abrupt cut to silence. Whisper. You're still awake, aren't you? Your sound design and pacing. Full V1. No music. Breathing only. Let silence stretch uncomfortably. 1 to 10. Low ambient hum. No rhythm. Occasional distant room tone shifts. 10, 25. Introduce faint ticking or electrical hum. Whisper appears once, very low. 25 to 40. Heartbeat enters slowly. Reverb increases subtly on narration. Whisper slightly clearer, still rare. 40, 55. Layered whispers, very faint, barely perceptible. Please like, share, and subscribe for more.